I was taught meditation I could sort of describe what I was taught. So it involved being aware of sensations in the body, or focusing on sensations in the body. We talked about focusing in the previous talk. But what's meant by that, sensations in the body, is meant it's basically you're supposed to focus on what's purely physical, the physical sensations. It's purely no mental, no imagination, no visualizing, just the pure mental. You're supposed to access the pure physical pressure, throbbing, tingling, whatever it is in your body. So that's the first aspect to it. And then the idea is to not react to that. So to not mentally react to that. And the idea was that what the Buddha means...
Isn't that all a reaction?
Exactly. I mean...
Anyway, I'll let you finish.
Well, yeah. So
where do you start?
The idea was that this was what sankhara is, what the Buddha meant by the word sankhara. Sankhara is this mental reactions to the physical sensations, or physical what's going on physically.
Okay.
And so the idea is that you don't react to those physical sensations, and if you don't react, then you're not creating sankharas. And when you're not creating new sankharas, then reactions, then old sankharas come to the surface as physical sensations that again you don't react to. And if you keep not reacting to this, then you're removing or getting rid of or purifying an old stock of old reactions, old sankharas.
How would you know that?
Because in the future, if you do it for long enough, you'll become enlightened, because you'll get rid of all of your past stock of sankharas. So you can't know that now, but in the future, if you keep doing this, at some point in the future...
You just have to take it and trust,
yeah,
and not be able to verify it.
Yes, that's
because
right.
your only way of your only relationship, your only conceivable relationship with some sankharas is to have body sensations.
That's right.
Which means the presently manifested body sensations that then you ascribe to be previous sankharas.
That's right.
The pool of previous sankharas is basically somewhere in my unconscious.
Yeah.
It's somewhere hidden.
That's right.
But I know it's there because I'm perceiving it now, so then it's not unconscious.
No.
Or you're not perceiving it now.
I think the idea...
So how can you have a thread that you can know, that you can discern, that you can reflect upon between something that's from unconscious and something you're conscious? That you can say, I see the connection between the two, because you will be conscious of that, which means it's not unconscious. So you can only take it on trust and never ever be able to verify that there are these accumulated sankharas that mysteriously manifest as bodily sensations.
Yeah. So that exactly. So, but it provides a story. I mean, that's basically
it provides a nice psychological explanation.
Yeah. And a nice,
look, I see all these things coming or going. It doesn't really require any kind of existential type of effort that will result in anxiety or doubt. I just need to monitor these random sensations, and in my mind develop like a fanciful, pleasing story of purification of energies and whatnot.
Yeah,
that's it.
So basically, it provides you with a motivation to keep doing this technique because it's got a nice story around it.
Right. It's like
you gotta go, I understand why to do this. I'll just keep doing this because that makes sense to me. That story. So I'll take that on faith, and I'll keep doing it because in the future, then I might have this experience of all these past.
Yeah, you have to start by taking things on faith, but the things you want to take on faith are the things that you want to then be able to verify, and thus replace that faith with confidence, as the suttas say.
Yeah.
But this you can't verify.
No.
How can you become conscious of the unconscious sankharas before they're manifested, and then know them as being there waiting to show themselves on the surface of your body? It's just assumption on top of assumption on top of assumption that you cannot even verify. You're just acting out of it because it pleases you.
So that's one problem, rather quite fundamental problem. Yeah. And also how can you experience pure physicality?
Yeah, that was the first point you raised.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's like you attend to something purely physical.
Yes.
And what,
if you're attending to it,
you have no thought of it in your mind.
Yeah.
If it's purely physical, means you are not thinking it. Yet, how are you talking about it?
How is it manifest?
How are you knowing it? How can you attend it?
Yeah.
Attention is not physical.
Yeah.
Your mind acts upon that which is completely outside of its domain, physical.
Anything that appears is somehow related to your mind.
Of course. That's
How
where it
could it not be?
manifests. Yeah. That's why everything is a Dhamma, and
Yeah.
that's why Dhammas are basically the objects
Yeah.
of the faculty of the mind.
So
Yet here you are,
trying
practicing Buddhism,
Yeah.
practicing Dhamma, rooted in a belief that you can perceive
Matter.
non-mentally matter. That is the pure matter. That's the pure experience of the matter. There is no thought or mind involved in it whatsoever.
That's right.
How is that even conceivable except as a thought?
Yeah, exactly. So that's one problem. The other problem, obviously, is how can you choose to not react?
Oh yeah, that was the second point you made.
Yeah.
Oh, so there are these things happening in my body, these sensations, and I am choosing to not react upon them.
Yeah.
Which is your current reaction.
Exactly, yeah.
It might be a better reaction than reacting immediately, impulsively,
Restraining yourself.
but it's still a reaction, yeah.
Yeah.
So you developing a belief that you're restraining a particular type of reaction on account of the action of restraint, that's not reaction. Well, that's a wrong view because it contradicts itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, you should restrain yourself if that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
But if you're restraining yourself and holding a view that restraining yourself is not the action, it's not the choice, it's completely beyond it, means you'll not look for that which truly is beyond it. That's why sense restraining itself cannot result in enlightenment. It's a good thing to do, but it cannot enlighten you because, as you can see, you can still hold and develop even further wrong views on account of it. Yeah, it's like, oh, stop thinking. That's a thought that you have in your mind that claims to have stopped thinking, or that can stop thinking by thinking. That's why wrong views are wrong, because they will at some point, at some level, contain some contradiction. That's it.
And then also you can say, I don't see how any of this that I've been describing can help somebody to discern the nature of the aggregates.
Oh yeah.
Because, so basically you're saying that you attend to pure matter by feeling it,
by not perceiving it with your mind.
then when you're describing the feeling, you're talking about pressure and throbbing and tingling, and so they're all perceptions.
Yeah.
So perception, feeling seem to feel much
So
together.
you're basically confused in regards to what's what.
And then sankhara manifests itself as matter, but this is your past intentions. So your past intentions manifest as material, which you feel. Everything's all mushed together. So you can't. How is continuing to do that going to help you to make sense of it?
Also on top of it, if you're not able to verify that whole thing of my past sankharas right now, how could have then the first person become enlightened? He couldn't have known that.
Oh, I see.
If you said you can only know it once you become enlightened, how did the first person become enlightened? He couldn't have taken that on trust because there was nobody to tell him. So how did the Buddha become the Buddha then? Well, by verifying things that you can verify for yourself and then instructing others to do the same. And if I tell you, well, this is your past thing, this is your unconscious thing, means it's non-existent.
Yeah.
If it's unconscious, you're not conscious of it, which means it's not there.
We can't talk about it. We can't.
So you talking about it means it's not unconscious anymore. You can talk about it, but once you do, it ceases to be that which is in the unconscious because you are consciously designating it. How's that possible? Same when the people say, the God, the ultimate reality, you can't express in words. You just expressed it. There is its expression.
Yeah.
You can't put it in words. You just put it.
That ineffable thing. Yeah.
You only wish things would be that easy in terms of enlightenment.
So I guess the question arises then: if sankharas then aren't this past stock of your previous reactions that manifests on your body physically that you should feel or perceive or whatever, until it all gets weared away and all this stuff. If that's the wrong way of thinking about sankhara, then the question arises, what did the Buddha mean when he talks about sankhara? And I think that's
yeah. Well, it's something that most people, even the teachers, would not necessarily dwell on sufficiently enough. They'll provide you an explanation for it, or use it to describe anything basically ambiguous that you have. Energies, theories, thinkings, patterns, sankharas. This is mystical entities basically that you need to overcome. But literally, the Pali word sankhara means what? Binding together, keeping things together, bringing it together,
put together,
forming it,
make
putting
together.
it together, making it together.
Make it together, yeah.
So it's basically something responsible for things to be things in a way, but not. That's the thing. No pun intended. Not in a sense that it's some sort of explanation of a universal structure of your experience.
Yeah.
Or it's something that pertains to the sense of self, and as the Buddha said, extinguishing of sankhara pertains to liberation of the atavada and everything else. So, because there would be a tendency to think of sankharas in the way that Jnanavira was thinking about it, which is theoretically true, but practically not necessarily adequate. You want to see them from the point of view of the self-view, from the point of view of appropriation. Because once you do that, sankharas are gone.
Okay.
So what is then? For somebody who is a sense of self, which means that inevitably has to be rooted in a sense of ownership of things. And now you have somebody who isn't anymore his own, who has relinquished his sense of ownership. What's the difference? It's obviously not in things that are there. They were taken as mine and now not taken as mine. Those things remain the same. So what's the difference then in sankhara there? It's basically whether it's taken as mine or not as mine. Thus, presence of sankhara means presence of taking things as mine. Absence of sankhara means absence of taking things as mine. And it is that very act of taking things as mine that forms your sense of self. Hence formations, or determines your sense of self, hence determinations. Or the makers, the I-making, the my-making, and whatnot. Whatever Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation was.
Yeah, ahankara.
Yeah. The point is, without taking things as mine, you cannot be determining, forming, maintaining the formation of your sense of self. So you stop taking things as mine, you stop fueling the sense, it will have to fade. That's what the Buddha said about a king. The king wouldn't be a king without his king's possessions, king's ownerships that make him a king. He's not a king. So if you yourself maintain things that make you yourself, that's why you are responsible for your own self-view. And that's what sankharas are. And if you look at them in your body, your sensations, none of that is owned already. You're already dismissing it. You want to look where is sense of self? Where is my own sense of self? Where is my own sense of ownership? Where are the things that are dear to me? Where are the things that sort of I find pleasing? I would be emotionally disturbed if I were to lose. That's where you look for sankharas.
Maybe like my meditation technique.
Yeah, well, yeah. Once you invest some time, they can become a touchy subject.
Yeah.
But again, basically, whenever there is a basis for suffering, means there is the appropriation. There are sankharas.
Yeah.
There are determinations that determine you as a sense of self.
But can you not? I mean, maybe this is the more what Jnanavira was saying. You can talk about sankharas in a more general sense.
Yes.
And you can talk about a particular type of sankharas.
But why are we talking about it in the first place? Because we all want to be free.
Exactly.
We want to be arahants.
Okay.
So you don't talk about them in any other sense.
Okay.
Unless you're free.
Okay.
That's why I mean, like, it's not incorrect to say that sankharas are the determination of the five aggregates, as Jnanavira did. But it's inaccurate practically. Because now somebody will read that and think, I understood what sankharas are, while he's still a putujana.
But wouldn't it be helpful for a lot of people to think that determinations or sankhara, whatever you want to call it,
if they have absolutely no other reference point in regard to sankharas,
it's more to do with what things mean. It's not to do with things that appear in your body. It's to do.
No, of course.
It's to do with the meaning of things.
What I'm saying now is that if you have no other reference as to what sankharas are, what Jnanavira described, it's better. But now that you can have even more accurate reference, the one I'm showing you, this is redundant.
I see. Okay.
So it's not helpful then.
Yeah.
So that's the whole point. Where are the things that I own? Why do I own them? Because you don't realize you can't own them. Hence, ignorance determines the sense of ownership.
Yeah.
Ignorance
determines
avijja
sankhara.
pacha sankhara. That's it. It's the most practical thing you can have. It's nothing abstract. Unless, of course, you have no idea what it is, in case it's everything abstract.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's certainly not observation of the tingling in your knees and whatnot.
No.
What difference does it make?
So
You can observe all you want and try to manage and sort of tailor your responses and your behavior to whatever's happening. Fundamentally, you're fully appropriating the body as a whole.
Yeah.
So you can dismiss the legs, you can dismiss everything, but overall, it's still my body.
so really,
So I'm only trying to avoid the parts by ignoring the whole.
Yeah.
Deal with the parts by ignoring the ownership of the whole.
so to find what sankharas are, begin by looking for something which is dear to you, something
Yeah.
which you care
Yeah.
about, something which is
You have to start on the emotional basis. And then see what that emotional basis depends upon.
Yeah.
And then look at the characteristics of that, as we described on Nietzsche as unownable. That's what sankharas are. Hence, you understand what sankharas are. You're not ignorant of them, which means there are no sankharas that determine you as you anymore.
yeah.
Because it requires you to not know that to maintain that. So yeah, by all means, abandon all sankharas. Not through your mechanical management, quasi-psychological sort of meditation technique, but by understanding what they are. And you will understand what they are if you look where they are, and they are where your sense of ownership is. Determinations, formations, all that.
And it's always it's always a background phenomenon.
Of course, yeah. It's
That's
what
the
the
thing.
knowledge is.
So people going, oh, these sankharas in my knees. They're
In my knees, yeah.
Exactly.
Would that knee be your knee if you already distinguish the ownership of the entire body as a whole? If you fully understood that what this body is liable to, what these elements will go back to, that they can't be yours to begin with, this body cannot be yours even if you wanted to. The only way to maintain it yours is to ignore the fact that it can't be yours. And people ignore that fact when they refuse to think about death, they refuse to think about sickness, aging, losing the loved ones, and so on. That's how you ignore.
parts of the body,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
And you ignore it because it's unpleasant to think about it. So when you start with a sense of ownership, thinking about how you cannot own things that are dear to you is very unpleasant. And that's why people don't do it. As simple as that. So would you then, if you do start reflecting like that, and you genuinely develop complete dispassion towards your own body and what happens to it, would you still be concerned about a random tingling sensation in my knee? No, because I already abandoned the whole domain. What difference does it make? And then you wouldn't also be concerned from agreeable things that happen to your body, agreeable food, agreeable sounds, or disagreeable sounds wouldn't bother you either, because you have abandoned the whole domain of the body. And you won't abandon the domain of the body, the nature of the body, by staring at its particular parts. Because you're losing, because of the
Well, you aren't looking
force,
at body.
the determination, the act of staring at this, you are then willingly excluding the whole picture. You can't do it both.
Yeah, exactly. And you can only discern what is meant by body, when the Buddha talks about body, by looking at experience as a whole. You can't, when you're focusing in on something, you're actually turning away from the domain you should be.
And that's when people think, oh, well, no, you develop the focusing first and then you look. No, because when you look back, you will look in the same manner in front of me, overly attending, focusing on it, which means what you're going to see, it's not going to be the background of your attention, the background of your seeing, because the only thing you know to do is attend, focus. Okay, now I'll focus on that which is behind my focusing.
Yeah.
Well, now that's your focus,
Exactly.
and something else is behind, and you have no means of discerning it, because all you know is how to stare at what you focused on.
And so really seeing sankharas means learning how to allow the background to be,
Yes.
to allow that to
But in the
manifest
most,
in the way that
in a more direct sense, it's allowing, even your sense of ownership to manifest, so that you can see its basis as unownable. If you see the impermanence of sankharas, as in unownability of that which is yours,
yes,
you cannot remain mine own. I'm not in charge of this. I'm not in control. You cannot maintain Attavada any further then. So that's the point here. Because if you think you sort of there is no self. I already dealt with that simply by denying it. Now I just need to look at these mysterious manifestations from my unconscious pool of consciousness through these sankharas, and somehow in a course of time purify myself through these observational techniques. Well, your starting point there is to stop denying all that and to recognize that there are still things that are dear to you that you are not addressing. You are hoping that by doing such and such technique you will magically address all the things that you are still liable to. No. The only way to address things you're liable to is to go face to face with things you're liable to. There is no skillful means or any kind of sort of a carryover. I'll do this and it will magically free me from that. No. The only way to free yourself from things you're subjected to, things you're burdened by, is to start unraveling the burden. Well, which you can only do if you acknowledge the burden. There is I am, there is sense of ownership.
Start there.
Now, within that, I need to find, basically, I need to learn how to regard these things as not mine. Not through denying, not through trying to get rid of it, but to understanding that they're not mine because they can't be mine, because they are truly not yours. They cannot be yours. And that's why liberation is possible in the first place.
And so that can only be found through the things, like not
that are yours.
So it's
that's another idea when people think like, oh, ownership is a problem, so I'll throw away my possessions. Oh, you're about simplicity in life. You shouldn't own things. You don't need to own things already to be a subject to ownership, because you already own your body, your senses. You own your senses, you own anything that can come through your senses. So if you think that throwing away things will free you from ownership, means you're making yourself even more deluded in regard to the nature of ownership, which is on the level of the senses, on the level of the body, on the level of the sankharas. But if you remove the ownership from that level through fully understanding how unownable those things are, and by that I mean impermanent, by that I mean anicca, then, well, as the Buddha said, he himself can stay in the king's palaces, eat two bowlfuls of food and whatnot, and not own anything, not be attached to anything, because he abandoned the whole domain where these things can manifest. He's free from sankharas.
Ownership is at that level. It's not the, like you said before, it's not the things.
Exactly.
So understanding that self is determined, self-determination.
Sure. Well, it's determined by your effort to understand. That's what the Buddha said is when they asked him, is Nibbana determined? Well, it's undetermined as a phenomenon, but in a way it's determined. And he said Nibbana is determined by the practice of a holy life. So your understanding, if you reach it, is determined by all the previous effort to understand. So in that sense, it's determined. But those determinations cannot be owned.
But you were saying that self is determined by...
Seeing that self is determined.
Self is determined. I thought you said understanding self.
Well, to understand that self is determined.
That's determined.
That is understanding sankhara, that sankhara that you're supposed to understand. That the self is determined.
Yeah, sure. That's what I mean. Sankharas are to be only understood correctly. First, if you accept your sense of self and the ownership, things that are dear to you. Sankharas are not understood in a sense of, look, this tree is impermanent, anicca, unownable, all these sankharas will come to pass. I don't care about that.
It's not concerning yourself.
So it needs to start with a personal concern, and then through that concern you can get understanding. But I'm saying that even that understanding, in a way, it's also determined by your efforts to understand. And that experience, it cannot be taken as mine. It cannot be appropriated. That's why it said Nibbana is asankhata. It's not determined by the determination of ownership. But it is determined by your previous efforts to develop it and practice it. But now that's done. That's why it's irreversible.
But as someone starting out, when you read all sankharas are anicca.
Means anything...
That's what I'm saying, all self-determinations.
Everything that determines your sense of self.
Yes. So the plurality of sankharas, it's through the singularity of the sense of self. That's how you can only see it rightly. It's not like, that's impermanent, that's impermanent, that's impermanent, that's impermanent, thus I am not my own. No, I am myself, then I read about that I can't be my own because I'm not my own master, as in I'm not in control of my own life, my senses, da. So within that sense of I am, you then find all these other things that could be determining you, that are determining you, and then you realize they're unownable. And the reason they're unownable is because they're plural. Like the singular mastery, the sense of self-mastery is always singular.
As I was saying, self-determination.
Yeah.
It
Undermines that singularity.
undermines that
Yeah.
self. Undetermined.
But no, that's important point, because people would, even this what we're speaking, could understand as, okay, so you just find these random things and then sort of reflect how they cannot be yours. That's accurate in theory, but in practice you want to do that through your sense of self, not left, right, up or down, before or after.
Yeah, what is determining this thing?
Exactly. So first you have to kind of start in the reverse order, the right order. So I am such and such. I'm such and such in such and such situation. Now there is obviously some emotional engagement because there has to be something felt. And that's the basis through which you start looking at things that are dear to you.
But
That's why like mindfulness of death done rightly will uproot anything, everything. Because it pertains to the absolute fundamental appropriation of your experience as a whole. Of the body, senses, all of that.
so but those determinations then are always seen in relation to this sense of self. So it's always a kind of
Those things will be seen as determinations
Exactly.
only through the sense of self.
and that's exactly what determination is. It's
Exactly.
that negative.
Yeah.
Those
And that's why
negative
people.
things.
That's why people get confused about. That's why the Buddha himself said, when he described various aggregates, he said, "This is what matter is. This is what feeling is. This is what perception is. Determinations and consciousness. Then what is matter? This is matter. What is determinations? And then list the 5 aggregates again.
Yeah, it's that which determines these things.
Yes, everything can be a determination if your sense of self depends on it. Which means, in order to see it as a determination, you need to see it through your sense of self, not like, oh yes, look out there,
So
that's
isn't
impermanent.
it seeing the context where you're at. So the context is self.
Yeah, it is.
This is the context where I start from.
Yeah.
Is myself.
So even if you look at the same thing, but if you don't look at it through the sense of self,
to the right context.
You
through
won't
the
be-
right context,
it won't be-
you're not seeing it as a determination.
Yeah. Because it isn't determining it. It isn't determining a sense of self.
Because determination is more of a relationship
Yeah. Or
between your sense of self and things that make your sense of
kind
self sense of self.
perspective,
Yeah, directional perspective. Yeah.
but that pertains to
To the sense of self, because that's the
Seeing
sole
that-
problem.
Seeing that context of self is determined by the content that I'm taking as
Yes.
pertaining to me, mine. That seeing that undermines the ignorance of that situation,
Yes.
which is
If seen
undermining.
in that order.
Yeah.
Because sense of self depends upon certain contents, you can say. This is mine, this is my definition, this is my belonging,
the
this is
king
my
has
place.
his palace, his
Palace,
kingdom,
crown,
all those
queen,
things.
possessions, all these things.
Yeah.
But
Get
so
taken.
now you read that, like, okay, so now you go and look at the individual, the crown, the cape, the throne, all these things. But now they are the things that are determination for him. And even if you are king yourself, they are determining you. But the only way to see them as determination is first to see them through your kinghood, so to speak. Through your sense of self, what you are, and then see how this sense of self that's present and enduring simultaneously is now, in the right order, determined by these things at the same time. So it's not determined by you choosing to be king, it's determined by you choosing to own these things that, can be taken away.
So your context.
Thus your sense of I'm a king cannot remain standing. So the only way to see determinations is to see them through that context. And if people forget that, it would be like, okay, I'm a king. And now you start examining your crown, this sankhara is impermanent.
Focus on it.
This is impermanent. Focus.
Focus,
Look
yeah.
at what it's made of to
Yeah,
prove
yeah,
that
yeah.
the whole is impermanent.
And then
All these
do
things,
precisely the
and
concept.
never ever for a single second do things in the right order, whereby first you start, I am a king, that's determined by this.
Yeah.
Not I am a king that has all of this. Because that's like I am, this is mine. It's other way around. I am because there are things that are mine through that sense of I am.
Yeah, you don't start. I'm a king, And now I get my.
And now I go to
kingly
the next
things.
step.
Yeah,
I'm a
that's right.
king.
Yeah,
My kingly
yeah.
things.
So that's why I keep
I'm
insisting.
first and everything else second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although, well,
Rather-
actually,
Yeah.
that's probably what the Patuchino would
Do
assume.
would have to.
They would think that.
Yeah.
They would think,
Yeah.
first of
This is who
all,
I am.
this is who I am, and then that's why I'm given these
Yeah.
things.
And
Rather
that's why
than
they will still be up to Jana for as long as they don't
Yeah.
uproot that view.
realizing that.
And that's
that
why whenever
being
we
king
do
is
a
completely dependent on all
contemplation,
this.
whenever we do a contemplation or like when we record these things, it's always like I keep insisting on being aware of your situation, and then while you're aware of situation, you look at other things within that, because it's doing exactly the same
Yeah.
principle. So while I am a king, there are all these things that I own because of which I'm a king. While I am a king right here, right now. So while I'm king right here, right now, what if I were to lose my castle? I would not be a king anymore while I'm a king right now.
Mhm.
That's how you will also be unable to remain indifferent to your ownership or loss of ownership. The only true way to be indifferent towards it is to abandon any sense of ownership through that sense of self that's being generated by that ownership. But if you start looking for ownership and abandoning ownership, like undoing the sankharas and whatnot, not through the sense of self, but as an afterthought, as a management technique, as a meditation technique, as a magical hope that will happen at the end of it, your sense of self remains unaffected, which means you'll be owning that now.
Mm.
And that's exactly why people would get upset.
And you basically are not
If somebody,
pressing
disagrees, even on the level like says your meditation technique is wrong, you get upset. Like, even if I'm wrong in saying that you are wrong, if
Wow.
you are getting upset,
Mm.
that's a problem. That should be a problem for
That's
you.
a red flag.
If you come across someone else's views and you get upset on account of that,
Yeah.
that should tell you a lot. And that's a work for you to do. Instead, if you truly understood, you will be able to see wrong views as wrong views and right views as right views. So if somebody comes and says you are wrong, you will be able to see whether they are wrong in saying that, or whether they are right in saying that, in which case you'll be more than happy to upgrade your behavior. But it needs to be taken on that personal level, which is initially unpleasant, and that's why everybody refuses it. That's why we just discussed that before, like how the most rational people would abandon the whole intellect if something triggers their feelings. That's it. If it's something unpleasant, that's it.
But what do you mean? It's unpleasant to
To accept.
accept.
Like it's
ownership.
unpleasant. It's unpleasant for me as a king to think how I'm a king, not because I'm a king,
Yeah.
but because I have all these things that define me as a king. Now I can think about those things as an afterthought when I don't really think through the feeling of like being threatened as a king. No, I'll just think and maybe ponder on the days when I have energy. And that's usually how most people practice the Dhamma. Or I'll think about impermanence and stuff when I have something particular to deal with, or like, when I feel like it. But no, needs to be done on that. That's why, like, existentially, I'm prey to suffering, as the Buddha described. It means you're always on the verge of anxiety, recognizing that, all this can be uprooted in a finger snap, and you cannot even conceive how to prevent it. So if that's your context, you would be seeing everything else that's kind of going against it, which is any form of ownership, any form of lust, passion, anger, distraction, carelessness. It's against that context. That's why it's unwholesome.
It's against that context.
Yeah.
Of things being yourself being determined.
Yeah.
by.
Exactly. It's maintaining the wrong context of I am,
I
thus
concur.
things are mine because I am. No, you are because you keep taking things to be yours. And that's why that right order of things
not-
depends. Because you'll be looking at the same thing. You will be completely wrong thing if you don't see it through the right order. That's why when people in the suttas would understand the Buddha first time, you'll be like, wow, it's like putting that which was second, putting it first, and putting first which was second.
Yeah.
It's all there. Like there's nothing new can be introduced, but but I thought, okay. So it's like what I thought was
What
second,
was
it's
upside
first.
down is now
Upside down,
Right.
uncovering what was
Yeah.
covered, but right there, that's it. So you want to see sankharas, you have to see them on the right level, because otherwise you'll be just looking at dhammas,
Yeah.
at random phenomena,
Yeah.
attending to it, focusing it, and ascribing it values and significance that it doesn't have, because you're not seeing it rightly.
So it goes on to say that all sankharas are dukkha.
All
self.
sankharas are unownable.
Yeah.
All sankharas are dukkha because they are unownable. So because all things, through your sense of self, they determine your sense of self, you cannot be their master. They are unownable because of that. You can't own them. You took the ownership given to you for granted.
Yeah.
But the fact that ownership was given to you means you can't own it, because it can be taken away, like a borrowed gold, borrowed jewelry, they would say. So because all these sankharas, through my sense of self, cannot be owned, that's why they cannot be like a basis for lasting satisfaction, for pleasure. That's why they are suffering. That's why they are unpleasant. Because of that, this sense of self is thus anatta.
It's not like the conclusion, but it's so seeing that this sense of self.
Yeah, it's a direct recognition.
Determined by these things. Thus,
that sense of self is then automatically not felt as mine.
So-
yeah, because it's the thing which is not mine.
Yeah.
All dhammas.
That's what I keep saying. Like if you see anicca and dukkha correctly, you don't then have to go and figure out anatta. Seeing anicca and dukkha correctly means seeing anicca and dukkha through your sense of self, which then means seeing anicca and dukkha, this sense of self through which I'm seeing this, cannot be mine. So your experience as a whole is experience of anatta.
But even seeing impermanence and suffering as being bound up with each other and inseparable, I think a lot of people think that,
See it out there.
yeah, they see that things are kind of, and it's then so
That's
why
why
that's what that's
exactly. That's why it's not
suffering.
it's not the anicca we're talking about. That's why I keep saying it's unownable.
In
because
fact,
if you say
the feeling that the knee is
it's
actually just
irrelevant.
in this state of flux is actually quite pleasant.
Sure. Yeah. Or when people say, look, the modern science has proven everything is impermanent.
Yeah.
That's not what impermanence is. Impermanence is unownability. Modern science cannot prove that.
Which can only be felt as
On the level of ownership, of non-ownership. Yeah. So I can say, look, this is impermanent, this is impermanent, this is impermanent, this is impermanent. Everything is impermanent, but that's still, it's not seen as impermanent things that determine me right here, right now. It's just seen in relation to me right here, right now. Thus I'm saying I am, and all these things that can be mine are not mine, but I still am, basically. So in order to see anicca and dukkha correctly, in order to see sankhara correctly, it needs to be seen through the sense of self.
Yeah. So most.
In order to see unownability correctly, you need to see it through the sense of ownership.
it has to be a threat
Yeah, through this to the ownership.
to the
Oh yeah, threat. Yeah.
It's a
That's-
threat.
And it's a threat
That's what
if
the
it's seen
impermanence
as that ownership depends upon it, not relates
it
to
can't
it
be felt as
externally.
pleasant, so it has to be that whole threat to where you're beginning with your
Yeah.
whole,
As I said, it's a threat if it's seen that your ownership depends upon it, not merely relates to it externally.
yeah.
Because usually that's how people observe anicca, as like external relationship, and then I infer that thus I am impermanent.
Yeah.
But that's it. I don't question that, impermanent. So you just kind of quote another set of belief on top of your unquestioned sense of I am and implicit ownership of things. And same, you want to see dukkha correctly, you have to see it through your sense of, through the pleasurability of your sense of self, of your sense of ownership, of your sense of I am, through the safety of your sense of I am. That's how you see the threat. Not like safety, threat is over there.
And
That's not a threat.
That's the thing. Is you want to see that, to actually have the knowledge of anatta. You have to go through that anxiety.
Existential
of knowing
unraveling.
You are going to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got no basis.
Yeah.
Your basis
Yeah.
is determined. Yourself is determined by things which are not.
Again, the suttas
Not
talk
just-
about it so many
So
times.
you're not going to feel good about it.
No.
Yeah.
You're going to feel that dukkha.
You're going to
It's a
feel the
good
weight of it,
sign.
the significance
It's a
of
good
having
sign.
to do that.
But that's the thing. Most people feel that something's wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm doing something
This
wrong.
is
Well, not everyone feels
I
it,
know.
but
I know.
when you start to see things correctly.
Yeah.
Ooh.
No, that's the whole point. I mean, the suttas say, like, the noble search will come out once you recognize. There are only two outcomes of fully recognizing the nature of suffering correctly is patujana.
mindfulness of the body leads to
Mental
grace.
derangement or search, noble search.
Yeah.
So once you face that existential anxiety, you will either lose your mind, or if you're composed well, develop your virtue beforehand, have a sense of restraint that will control your behavior, that will then make you go mad if you do it. So if you're developed in terms of your behavior, you won't go mad, but it doesn't mean you won't feel the weight of that anxiety. And that's what it says. 2 outcomes, mental derangement or noble search. In other words, you can't remain indifferent. You can't go back to your life you know before, because you've already undone a great deal of ignorance by becoming aware of anxiety. That's why I keep saying anxiety is not a problem, it's a symptom basically. It's a beginning of recognition of what your existence is.
Yeah, it indicates your actual state.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was just saying that your mindfulness of the body leads to great existential dread.
Who says that? Where says that?
That's the Anguttara Nikaya. It's all those sutras about the mindfulness of the body, the benefits of mindfulness of the body, and the first one is
will
that it
reveal
leads
you
to
the existential anxiety.
Yeah.
I didn't read that one. Maybe I did. I don't know. But no, that's exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a necessary basis. I'm prey to suffering. A young man thinks that, and then because of that goes to the whole life, wants to practice, wants to commit his life to the Dhamma, as in not to the lofty serving of the Dhamma society, but to actually become an arahant and free himself. Practice it.
Yeah.
How would you feel if you were prey? If you're being hunted by everything and nothing? It would be very anxious existence day in, day out. So yeah, it's unpleasant. What's the first attitude towards displeasure? I want to get rid of it. Okay, so now you know that's not what you should be acting out of. Stop trying to get rid of it. So that will then force you to start to learn how to see through it. But yeah, if you get an attack, oh no, that's wrong. Don't even go there. Just watch your nostrils, feel the soles of your feet. Stop thinking. Too much thinking. Just stop thinking.
Yeah, when you feel bliss,
that's it.
That's it.
That's it. That will free you from the existential suffering and everything else.
And that's why the Buddha, the Satipatthana, I think a number of places talks about the difference between feeling like, so yeah, you've got unpleasant feeling, pleasant feeling, but you've got feeling of the flesh and amisa and feeling that's not of the flesh, nirāmisa. So, and that needs to be distinguished. You need to kind of recognize, okay, this is unpleasant, but it isn't essential. It isn't anything to do with the senses, this unpleasant feeling. So there isn't a danger in it.
Exactly. So then there's no essential danger, or danger of essential domain. Yeah.